And we'll spend a little bit of time, as always, just resting relatively still before we start to move. So just using that as a chance to kind of pause and check in and notice how things are to start. So what are we beginning with? What are we bringing into the practice? And giving yourself a little bit of time to decide whether beginning with your eyes open or closed might suit you best this morning. Sometimes closing the eyes can help us bring our attention inwards a little bit more, but sometimes it's useful to keep the eyes open, especially if you find that the mind gets really busy when you close them. So we're making choices to begin that help us start the process of becoming a little bit more grounded and a little bit more gathered where we are. So taking a moment to sense into the sounds around you. Another way of really grounding yourself in the present moment, to focus on sound. Sounds inside the room, sounds further away. Seeing if you can experiment with finding a way of resting within these sounds. So the sounds can come and go, but you don't need to be too involved. You don't need to hold on to any of them. You don't need to resist or push any of them away. Just allowing. And from that more resting, kind of witnessing place, you might notice particular reactions to certain sounds. So some sounds drawing us, feeling quite appealing. Some sounds you might get a sense of irritation or frustration. And that's really normal and natural. We don't want to make any of those reactions stop, but just giving ourselves an opportunity to step outside them a little bit so we can see them come up rather than being right in them. And then taking that same kind of gentle awareness towards our physical experience. So becoming aware of the fact now that you're breathing, without needing to breathe in any particular way. Just allowing the breath in and allowing the breath out. Noticing the kind of breath that you are bringing with you into your practice today. And seeing if you can do that without too much judgment. The breath just is as it is. And seeing if you can set an intention for yourself to offer that same kind of gentle witnessing to your experience through the rest of the practice. So gently noticing how things are in your body, gently noticing what comes up in the mind, gently noticing emotions that might arise, seeing if we can find a way of making space for it all. And then we're going to take a few rounds of breath, just using the breath a little bit more consciously to really ground ourselves in our bodies. So see if there's anywhere in your body that might like a little bit of extra contact right now, somewhere that it would feel nice to rest your hands or one hand. Feel free to do that. And then just give yourself 2 or 3 breaths, imagining that you could breathe into that point of contact. You might feel movement, you might be aware of heat or warmth. And if it feels useful to you, you could let the out breath sigh out through the mouth. It's really releasing with the out breath. So then when you feel ready, we'll let that go. Let your breath just return to its natural rhythm, whatever it needs to be right now. Knowing that if it's comfortable to breathe through your nose, that will support you in relaxation. But if you need to breathe through your mouth, or it feels like some kind of sighing out breaths like that might feel good at any point, you're really welcome to do that. And then let's make our way from here up to a seated position. I'm going to give just a little bit of attention to our feet to begin. So take your time if you've been resting on your back, slowly making your way up. And I'm just going to move a little bit further back so you can see what's going on with my feet. So as you come to a seated position, use a cushion or a blanket underneath your hips so that you're a little bit higher, you can sit a little bit taller without using so much effort. And we'll start with having a go at making a little bit of contact with our feet. So for some of us, it might not be possible to reach all the way down to the feet, in which case just use this as a moment to find yourself sitting upright and bring some attention towards your breath again. But if you can bend your knees enough that you can reach a foot, then give yourself a chance to do that. Sit in any position that you need to give yourself access to your foot. That's the word I'm looking for. And we're just going to start with a little bit of kind of self-massage. So if you use the pads of your thumbs to kind of press into the soles of your feet as hard or as soft as feels good in your feet right now. If the wrists are feeling a little bit sore, you might also just make a kind of soft fist and use the top of the hand. That might involve a little bit less sensation there. And just feeling the kind of depth of the flesh on the foot. We've got a lot of connective tissue down here. You don't think too much about it. And you might like to feel your way up through the inner arch of the foot with your fingers or your thumbs. Great. If it's available, and again, this is a little bit tricky depending on what's going on in your hips and your knees, so it might not be something that everyone can do today, but you can see if you can thread your fingers in between your toes all the way up, so that you are kind of meeting your toes with your hands. If you've ever had a pedicure or done a pedicure and you get those funny little foam things in between your toes, it's that sort of feeling. You can have a little wriggle around. Just like you're shaking hands with your foot here. Great. And then extend your legs out and have a little wiggle through both feet, both toes. Just notice if one's feeling different to the other. Perhaps the one that you've woken up might be a little bit more little bit more mobile, mine is, I think. And then take a look at the toes. You might notice that they look a little bit different as well. And then we'll do the same process on the other side. So however you need to sit to find access to your feet, and then beginning to put some pressure into the sole of the foot. You might find that there are some little spots as you work your way around that are quite tender. So you can pause with that, give them a little bit more attention, a little bit more time. If pressing with the thumbs doesn't feel so good, remember that you can use a gentle fist. Seeing if you can feel the inner arch of your foot. And our feet are really, I think it's a really beautiful structure, our feet. Oh, I've just noticed my video's disappeared. Can people still hear me? Will you give me a little, come back. Yeah, I think I was riffing on how beautiful our feet are. It's a really elegant kind of structure, but I think we don't give them very much attention and very much time. And what is happening in our feet will really impact what's happening higher up in our bodies. So they deserve a bit more attention and time and love, I think. So if we can give it to them, they will appreciate it. And other things probably will too. So if you were able to find that kind of threading through action, threading your fingers all the way in. Oh, I haven't done this for ages and it's feeling really tricky today. And maybe having a little circle into the ankle as you put some space into those toes. Great. And then again, extend both feet out. Give a little wriggle through the toes. And then turning the feet in and out and seeing if you can find that action coming from the very tops of the hip bones. Lovely. Great. And then from here, let's just find a more comfortable seated position. So whatever's going to suit you to find an upright place. Sitting with your legs crossed or kneeling or legs extended. And Anna was talking a little bit at the start about having spent a lot of time standing yesterday and noticing that her back really hurts after that. So I thought we'd just give a little bit of attention to what's happening in our back as we think about being upright, whether that's sitting or standing. So if you bring your hands to your body, one to the heart and one to the belly, and then allow yourself to get a little bit taller. And as you do that process of lengthening and getting a little bit taller, see if you can notice what's happening in the back of your body. So you might notice as you do that, that there's a bit of tightening in different places. So see what you would need to do in your body to allow that tightening to release again a little bit. So it might mean that the chest kind of drops a little bit. So the ribs settle a bit more into the belly. A lot of us unintentionally bring a bit of an arch into the lower back, a bit of a hinge around the waist when we think about getting taller. So can we be tall without sacrificing space in the back? Okay. And it might help to think about the face softening and the face kind of dropping back a little bit towards the back of the head. Lovely. And then let your hands rest down. And let's come into some movement for the shoulders. So bringing the shoulders up towards the ears, rolling them back and down. And seeing if you can do that with, again, an awareness of what is happening in the back. So do you revert immediately to a place of putting a little bit of pressure into the mid-back? Can you still keep that open even as the shoulders move? And let's rest the fingertips on the shoulders and circle through the elbows. And again, noticing if you get into that place of kind of lifting and hinging through the chest, could you stay a little bit more stable there? So the shoulders have a chance to move independently. And then we'll circle in the other direction. Great. And then let's bring our hands down. And as you breathe in, circle the hands all the way out and up. As you breathe out, bringing the hands down towards your heart. Again, with that gentle awareness of what's happening in the back of my body as I do this. So as you lift your arms, can you keep the back of the body a little bit more spacious? It might mean dropping the front ribs a little bit more down towards the belly. And the next time that we reach up, let's pause there. Still breathing, just reaching to the sky for a moment. And then imagining that you might reach up to something on a high shelf. Side to side, lengthening through the waist. And the next time you reach with the left hand, you'll pause there, right fingertips coming to the earth and finding a side bend. So a soft bend to the elbow and a reach across towards the right. Just enough to feel some opening through this side. Then coming up to center and coming down towards the left. Soft bend to the elbow. And then let's move with the breath. So as you breathe in, coming to center. And as you breathe out, coming down gently to the right. And we don't need to put too much weight into that hand at all. And the next time that we come down towards the left, let's finish there. Coming back towards center. Have a little roll through the shoulders, have a little shake through the hands and a flick through the wrists, if that's comfortable. Great. And then we'll come into a bit of movement for the spine from here. So you could do that from a tabletop position, but I'll show you another couple of options. So if you're comfortable on your hands, you can find that. If it's not good to have weight in your wrists today, you might choose to do this on your forearms, or you might stay seated. So whichever place you'd like to begin, see if you can tune into the position of your spine and see if you can find a nice long spine. Then take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, we're going to round the spine by dropping the head and curling back into the back body. As you breathe in, slowly rippling forwards, heart moving forwards, face floating up. And then continuing to work your way through those two shapes. So the spine has a chance to arch and round. Right. And imagining that the arms are strong pillars of support, so the elbows will stay fairly straight, and then that allows the movement to come more into the spine. And then give yourself a chance to let that movement kind of emerge into something more organic. So the weight might shift from side to side. If you're sitting, you could circle through the hips. The spine might wave from side to side. Right, it's allowing the body to find the movement that suits you best today. And then we'll find our way towards child's pose from here. So knees might come a little bit wider, head resting on the earth or on stacked hands or on stacked fists. Finding somewhere that allows you to feel a little bit quieter and a little bit stiller after that movement. I'm noticing where you can feel your breath in your back at the moment. What kinds of sensations are there? Okay. And then in your own time, just making a decision whether you might benefit from continuing to rest for the next few moments, in which case child's pose or another restful position, whatever that is for you today. Or if beginning to move with the breath will feel good. So if you'd like to move with the breath, extend your hands out and float up towards a tabletop position as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, drifting back towards child's pose. Breathing in to find a tabletop position and out to find child's pose. And you might stay with that, or you've got the option to thread downward facing dog into that flow if it would feel good in your body this morning by lifting the hips and drawing them up and back. Allowing your own breath to guide you, however you're moving. Great, and respecting how things feel in your body, so making choices that are kind. In the next few moments, we're going to make our way towards a standing forward bend. So you can come up to standing however feels best in your body today. If you've been practicing downward facing dog, you could pad your hands back. And we'll meet with the knees softly bent, the head releasing down, the spine long and open. It might feel good to take hold of your elbows and remembering that you can always shift your weight a little bit from side to side to ease into the back and the sides of the body. It doesn't need to be a static place here. And then in your own time, we'll slowly come up to stand. So keep your knees softly bent. Roll your way up. Let your shoulders unfurl. Head coming up last. Have a little shake out. Right. Lovely. And now that we've come up to stand, let's bring our attention back down again towards our feet. So as I was saying at the start, what is going on in our feet, the kind of support that our feet are offering higher up in the body will really change everything else that's going on up above. So the feet have a really important role to feel and offer feedback to your body about where your body is in space. And the more sensitive they are, the more able they are to kind of sense and offer that support, the more the rest of your body can kind of trust and balance, basically. If that's not really there, then there's a lot of tension higher up in the body as the body kind of tries to hold on and work out, like, oh, where am I? Oh, not sure. So the more we can connect with our feet, the more we can get them sensitive and strong, the more the body kind of falls into a natural balance. So let's take our attention down towards our feet and just take a look at them to begin with, because even that is something that we might not spend a lot of time doing, especially if you tend to wear shoes inside. Then yeah, your poor feet don't get a look in. So let's have a look down and see if you can lift your toes up away from the ground. And then spread them back down. You might even experiment with putting them down one at a time, which is really challenging. Great. And then we're going to do a bit of an experiment to switch on the inner arches and kind of create some mental wiring connections a little bit more to the feet, which is something it's really challenging to do. So if nothing happens when you start to do this for the first time, it's not surprising. Don't worry, keep trying, keep thinking about it. So we're going to look down at our feet, root down the balls of the big toes and see if you can lift up all 4 of your other toes. And then see if you can swap. So rooting down 4 toes and lifting the balls of the big toes. That feels really difficult for me today. So swapping that a couple of times. I'm really noticing it's probably been a few months since I did this or thought about this, and one of my feet is really not up for it. Okay, and then we're going to root down through the balls of the baby toes and root down through the balls of the big toes and see if you can lift up your 3 middle toes. You might need to really look at them to encourage this to happen. Notice what's going on in the lower legs, the feet, higher up in the body, and then see if you can let that relax completely. Have a little jiggle through your knees. Great. So for some people, you can just do that. For some people, you might need to practice that every day for quite a long time before the middle toes suddenly just spring into life. But we've all got the potential to do that. Just the sort of brain wiring can get a bit sleepy if we're not using those connections often. And thinking about that action of rooting down through the big toes, rooting down through the baby toes and lifting the 3 middle toes, not exaggerating it massively, but just just thinking about it can change the way that we feel in our standing poses quite a lot. So let's kind of bring that in a little bit to our standing poses today. So if we start with chair pose, we'll bring our feet about pelvis distance apart, nice comfortable distance. And then hinging at the hips, bringing the weight back into the heels so that the knees begin to bend a little bit. You might think about that action in the feet of switching the feet on a little bit, switching the arches on. And then bring some attention to that mid-back area. Put one hand on your heart and notice if you're kind of lifting your chest and that's putting a bit of pressure through the mid-back, can you just encourage the heart to soften a little bit? So the mid-back might broaden. Great, and you might feel a little bit more integrated at the center. And then maybe your hands rest on your thighs, maybe they come to your heart, or maybe they extend forwards and up. But choose an option that is kind for your lower back, so you're still feeling broad and open and strong there. And then the last thing that we might add in is some movement with the breath. If you're extending your arms up, as you breathe out, you could sweep the hands back. And as you breathe in, you could sweep the hands forwards. Finding a root for your arms that respects how things are feeling in your shoulders today. And then coming up to stand when you're ready. Great. And then we're going to step back from here to find a high lunge position. So we'll step back with our left foot to begin with, about a leg's distance. And you've got a couple of options here. So if it's available to you, if it's okay for your balance, you can come up onto the ball of that foot and lift the heel, spinning the heel directly back behind you. Bending the front knee a little bit, bending and straightening. If that feels so challenging for your balance that nothing else is going to be happening in this pose, you can always root that back heel down. But lifting the heel will square your hips forwards and just gives a little bit more of an opening and a stretch to the sole of the foot. And then see how things are feeling in the lower back, the mid-back. Notice if softly bending the knee might bring a little bit more ease to your lower back. We want to find somewhere where there's no compression there. And then maybe bringing the arms up Or maybe keeping the hands at the heart, see what feels best for you today. And we're going to give ourselves 3 or 4 deep breaths, just finding the strength in the legs, the length in the spine. One more breath here. And then hands down if they've been raised. Let's turn so that we can face the side. Have a little wiggle through the hips. Great. And we're going to turn so that our heels are even, in line with each other, and the toes are pointing out a little bit. So that when we bend our knees and bring our hips back, the knees are still pointing in the same direction as the toes. And really thinking about taking the hips back in space so you can feel the big muscles in the legs begin to switch on. And then the same way that you did in chair pose, just noticing what's happening in your mid-back here. Might it be that softening down through the chest could help that to feel a bit more broad and open? Bring your hands towards your heart. And as you breathe in, lengthening the legs, reaching up. And as you breathe out, bending the knees, hips back, weight in the heels. Last breath here. And then let's pause here in temple pose, so knees bent. Seeing if you can balance the weight as evenly as you can side to side. And just taking that attention back down again towards your feet, and notice how awake and alive are they feeling right now. If you give your toes a little wriggle or come back to that movement of rooting down through the outside edges and lifting the 3 middle toes, what does that change in the feet and in the legs and higher up? Take one more breath. And then coming up and squirreling your feet back in. Have a little shake through the legs, lovely. And then we'll come into that high lunge position from the other side. So we're going to be stepping back with the right foot this time, about a leg's distance. Maybe lifting that back heel if that's okay for your balance, maybe grounding the back heel if that's better. And then bending that front knee a few times. Get a sense of that front leg switching on. And then noticing how things are around your back and the center of your body. Might a soft bend to the knee help you find a more broad and open back, a more integrated center? Hands at your heart or extending up if you prefer. And giving yourself a few deep breaths here. Breathing through the whole of this shape. And in your own time, making your way back out. Have a little wriggle and a shake. Lovely. And then let's find our way into a balance from here, and we'll play a little bit with kind of moving on from that high lunge position that we were in by beginning to lift the back leg. So if you start with your feet a nice comfortable distance behind you, just make sure there's nothing straight behind you that you're gonna kick if you're lifting your leg. And then step back a little bit, just enough that you can start to experiment with taking your weight forward into your front leg. And if your balance feels a little bit wobbly today, you might want to do this with a wall nearby so that you can kind of play with that with a bit of support. Or you can stay where you are. Great. Once you've got a sense of that foot taking the weight, you might experiment with being there a little bit longer. So rooting down into your standing leg and lengthening back into your back leg, really waking up that back foot. So the more awake and alive that foot is, the more you might be able to connect to your center. Just experiment with it getting really floppy and then switching on and notice what changes. Great. And then come back up. And we'll change sides, so stepping back with the other foot. And just playing perhaps with taking the weight into that front foot. It might be that just the heel lifts a tad and then finds the earth again. Great. If it's available, you could spend a bit longer with that foot raised, just experimenting with the connection between what's happening in your feet, what's happening at the center of your body, what's happening with your breath. Let's take one more breath wherever you are. And then coming back to the fine center. Lovely, have a little wriggle and a jiggle. And then our legs have worked really hard to support us in those standing poses. So let's give them a little bit of massage and love with our hands. So we're going to make some soft fists. And then just pad your way down over the big muscles of the legs, the buttocks, gently around the knees and down into the calves. Back up. Legs. Might be nice to do a little bit of that tapping and patting around the back of the pelvis and the lower back if you can access that. Great. Lovely. And then let's make our way down towards the ground and we'll finish off with some twisting on our backs. So if you have got your cushions or a blanket, it would be useful to have one really underneath your head. And we're going to start off lying on our sides. Let's start on our left-hand side. So the left hand is on the ground extended. The right hand can come to meet it. Okay, and we'll start with some really small rotations for the upper back. Often tension and tightness in the upper back is one of the things that might lead us towards that kind of hinging motion in the mid-back. The mid-back starts to take up the slack a little bit. So this movement can bring a little bit more mobility into the upper back and the shoulders. So just feeling the contact between your hands. And then when you're ready, we're going to slide that top hand forwards, just as far as it can go comfortably without forcing anything. Pause and notice where the hand is. As you breathe in, we're going to keep the top arm straight and draw the shoulder back. So the hand begins to slide along the bottom arm and your upper back rolls open a little bit. And then as you breathe out, sliding the hand forwards. As you breathe in, slowly rolling open. It's not a huge movement at all. Just dropping into your own breath, sliding forwards and then drawing back and open. Great. And then the next time that you breathe in, let your hand travel all the way up. So you're going to bend that top elbow, stroke along the whole of the arm, And then just opening through the chest. So that right arm might not find the ground, just as far as it feels comfortable for your back and your chest. And then as you breathe out, make contact with your chest, slide the hand forwards and then all the way back along the arm. So breathing in, the hand strokes all the way along across the chest and opening up. And breathing out, stroking across the chest and back forwards again. Great. And then we'll pause in a more open twist if that's comfortable for you. You might need to do a little bit of experimenting here, maybe floating the knees up a little bit so that your right shoulder can find its way to the ground. Maybe the right hand might need to move higher up towards your head. Maybe the right elbow might need to bend. Have a play around to see where you need to settle to feel as comfortable as you can through the upper body. If you have another cushion available, you might find that a cushion in between your knees or underneath your left thigh is a helpful prop here. So feel free to experiment with that too. We'll be here for a few rounds of breath, so inviting anything that's holding on that doesn't need to be holding on right now to gently soften. And then in your own time, we'll find our way back to center. And we're going to roll all the way over onto our other side. So now resting so that the right hand is on the ground, the left hand is on top of it. And we'll start with those gentle rotations for the upper spine. So when you're ready, keeping the top arm straight to begin with, as you breathe out, we're going to slide that top hand forwards. And as you breathe in, gently rolling open. Breathing out to slide forward. Breathing in to roll open. It's quite a small and subtle movement, perhaps. And whenever you feel ready to make that a little bit bigger, changing the movement by bending the top elbow and stroking the arm all the way up to the chest. And then rolling back with the out breath. And when you feel ready for something stiller, find your way towards a twist, maybe extending out through the left arm, maybe some extra support between your knees or underneath your knees will help this to feel more comfortable. You can really experiment with this position to find a place that you can begin to settle and begin to let go of any unnecessary tension. And then in your own time, in the next few moments, going to find our way towards final relaxation. So you might unroll to rest on your back. You might find that resting on your side was feeling good and settling, so you might like to stay there. Or you might like to come up to sit or find another position that suits you today. Just make sure you feel warm enough. Make sure you feel as supported as you can be. So the more support that we can allow ourselves to feel, the easier it is to begin to let go and soften. Let yourself take up all the space that you need here. Really spread into the position that you find. See if you can invite each out breath to be an opportunity to drop a little bit more into the support of the earth. And seeing if we can return to that same gentle witnessing state that we began with. So the breath at the center of the body provides a steady anchor that we can return to. But we won't be with the breath constantly. There'll be all sorts of other things that might come through our attention and ask for our witnessing. There might be physical sensations, thoughts, emotions. Seeing if we can find a way to make space enough for all of those things. Anything that needs to arise can arise. You can gently notice it. Observe it without needing to be drawn in. Remembering that we've got this steady anchor of our breath to return to. And that the breath is always there. So wherever we've been and however long we've been gone, each time we return to the breath, we can begin again. And we'll spend the next few minutes resting together quietly. Just offering yourself that gentle invitation to return. And then beginning to become aware again of your breath, aware of your body resting on the earth. Allow yourself to picture the room in which you're resting. And then begin to invite some gentle movement to come back into the body, whatever helps you begin to return and wake up. In the next few moments, we're going to make our way towards a seated position to bring the practice to a close. But there's no rush, so give yourself time. Come up gently. Find find a seat that's as supported as it needs to be for you to be upright without needing to use too much effort. So there's this balance of effort and ease that we're trying to strike. We're alert and awake, but relaxed. Great. And just giving yourself a moment in whatever seated position suits you to check in again, as we did at the beginning, just to notice how things are inside. Noticing the breath, noticing the physical sensations and emotions. Noticing what might have shifted and noticing what might have stayed the same. Seeing if you can be kind and generous with whatever is there. All welcome. And then finding a gesture with your hands that helps you bring a sense of completion to your practice, maybe making contact with each other or with the body somewhere. And take a moment to thank yourself for making the time to practice this morning, for beginning your day by coming into your body, taking care of yourself. And think about taking a sense of spaciousness and support into the rest of your day and on into the week ahead.